The national goals is there. We can national we can say that one different it means different goals to improve the integrated water resource management. So we know that water resource issues there, resources plans issues there, and the resource of population, water availability issue, and pollution issue, and different issues that we discussed before. And water resource policies, the government of India and national water policy conserve the Indian water resources, and aim of the policies link with the river basin and transfer water basin from one basin to another basin, that kind of to another basin to for the optimum use of available water. So different kind of policy is there, and implementation plan. Then after that we are they are planning to implement some establish the policy and implement the plan. So action implementation after implementing, then planning some implementation plan. After implementation, then we need to take actions is necessary, because that work or any projects, if they are that already passed from the central government, means we have to start the work. So then when it starts, then we can say that what government has implemented, the project is started. It means actions of implementation is important. And monitoring and evaluation of progress for each and every step of the project, we should monitor, and because it's meant we have some plans, and we have to reform the process. Then this is, so that reason the arrow mark shows in direction. It means we have to go back the systems, because we have to come back based on the experience. This all the experience we have to come back, and we have to analyze the situation for the proper first initial plan, and after the final plan, how it is manage the integrated water resource management using this system, development of the object, how we can develop the system objective. We said no, some goals is there, and after that water resource issues is there, different issues, the resource issues and population issue, pollution issue, and same thing, water resource policy and agency. We have the Indian government agency, national water policy. They are implementing some policy, and IWRM implementation plan, and some implementation plan is there. So that implementation plan, that actions is necessary, actions of implementation, and after that monitoring, and after and evaluation of progress, and finally that is national goals. And they have to go back the systems to and reform the process. That is we can say that one, development of objectives. And ecological sustainability, enabling the environment and management instruments and institutional roles. So this one we can say IWRM planning, three basic plans enabling the environment, because we have that suitable work, we can say the suitable policies and strategies there. So that is important. Legislation and international cooperation is required for the enabling environment. And management instruments meant for implementation, we have to see that benefit are sustainable of IWRM planning cycle. That is called management instrumentation. And institutional roles is means institutional framework practices the policies and strategies and legislation. This is the level of action, management boundaries, and capacity of building. This is ecological sustainability. First one, management of instrumentation. What I'm saying, whatever the projects is implementing, that benefit we need to check, and benefit are sustainable up the IWM planning we need to check. And next to be on policies and legislation and international cooperation, that everything needs to check. And then finally is level of action and management of boundaries and capacity of the building. That everything is linked up with one system to another system. These three links is very important, and three IWM planning, three basic plans of this one. And to next one is identification of present situation and formulation of desired IWRM situations. And present situations we need to identify, and also formulation of desired IWRM situations. So present situation is also important. We need to analyze the present situation, and according to that we need to act of the systems. So that is and legislative and organizational framework. National, provincial and local water sector and policies determine stakeholders who play their respective roles in the development of management of water resources. Basin organization put by law have a strong mandate. Laws and water policies spell out rules, responsibility, and accountability of public and private sectors. Water management framework should be the part of the existing national administrative system where basin and national water policy should be harmonized. That one national and local and bodies should be monitored over the legislation and organizational framework. And assessment of the institutional and organizational framework process and rules. Assessment of institutional frameworks requires a process to come from an identified present water resource management situation to desired integrated water resource management situation, formulation of intervention to arrive desired IWRM situation, and establishment of monitoring system to whether the interventions are being carried out properly and whether they really contribute to the achievement of the IWRM goals. So we need to check that whether it is the establishment of the monetary system to see whether the intervention of the being carried out properly and whether they really contribute to the achievement of IWRM goals. So that we need to check that one organizational framework whether they are work doing proper way. That monitoring and evaluation is very necessary for that each and every project steps. So that we need to check whether it is properly working or not. That important process and tools. Step 1: the present situation on water resource use and management should be well known before any intervention directing the IWRM can be made. That each and as I told before, evaluation, monitoring and evaluation is very important. That reasons the present situation is very necessary to find out the situation of the project. Understanding the water situation is prerequisite for assessment and analysis of the institutional framework and the water use conflicts between stakeholders, because its conflicts demand and it's totally demand is deal with demand and supply. Then with some conflicts it occurs between the stakeholders, because that the water usage persons is different. Then poor people is there and rich people is there. Their demand and supplies that supply is different. When whatever the demand is there, supply also supply depend on that supply is required. So that is also important. Accurate and representing the opinions, desires and aspirants of all stakeholders, important aspects to be dealt with there. Water availability and water use, stakeholders, physical condition, socio-economic condition and legal framework, institutional framework, policies, trends and financial situation. Because this all we need to find out from the stakeholders and public. This all questionnaire survey we need to make, and we need to find out what is the problem they are facing and what is the situation they are they are really facing in that one. So we need to make that one find out that each steps and each stakeholder's opinion, and from that we can monitor and we can plan it proper rule. So the report serves a general background document for the following steps and has to be disseminated accordingly. So water users, consumptive and non-consumptive uses, water polluters, agriculture, industry and domestic use, water. So this we can make categorize this one, water users, consumptive and non-consumptive use, because on agricultural sectors and different sectors they are using, and what is how much consumption they are consuming water for agricultural sector and the different sector, that we can categorize the consumptive and non-consumptive use. And water polluters, we got different pollutions, we can say that one industry and domestic users and agriculture sectors, there also we can consider. Water managers, organization and operational levels, water policy and lawmakers, constitution level. The constitution levels they are having some rules related to the water, so that is one water policy and lawmakers. And society and general, so we can say that interest represent the government and specific interest represented by NGOs. The stakeholders and interest groups, stakeholders are people or group of people with interest. The stakeholders are considered a private body. Assessment of institutional framework, the stakeholders can be classified in inventory of water problems. The use of water flow diagram can be most useful to put the registered problems. In this stage, the inventory of water problems limits itself to those generally known as and the registered water problems by the main stakeholders. Stakeholder selection. Stakeholders inventory will be made in step 1. These stakeholders will be the obvious operators of water services, coordination bodies and policy and lawmakers. For further process, a selection of stakeholders have to be made to avoid duplication. An independent team is formed to identify and select relevant stakeholders from the categories: water policy makers, water managers, water service providers, water using agents, water using groups, water users and other potential interest holders to institution and organization and operation levels. These stakeholders will be approached for a depth interviews. We have to take all the opinion from these stakeholders, and we have to final conclude that one what implementation we can improve, and what implementation we can make it for better use of water and better management. For this also very important questionnaire survey for these all stakeholders, and we can come from then better management result using this all the interviews and all the questionnaire survey. Related to that, we can find it whether it is proper management, this one is proper tool or not, to find out the solution for different issues. So that is important for integrated water resource management one topic. Then stakeholders interviews. Experts carry out in the elaborate procedure for interviewing the selected stakeholders, applying the guidelines for the interviews. These guidelines are in format of questionnaire which contains questions relating to the stakeholders interviewed and the perception of the existing situation and what they consider to be desired IWRM situation during this interview. Previously overlooked stakeholders can be identified through the identification of parties that negatively influence the implementation of the stakeholder duties. A different set of questions under the issues in the matrix issued to all three functional levels. They are organized under the headings: stakeholders, awareness, policy, legal framework, and institutional framework, and financial arrangements, and human resource development, and management information system, and decision support system. These all the systems, we can say that one they are organized under the headings. These are the organized under the headings. Analysis of stakeholders' opinion. The outcome of all interviews will be collected and inventory will be made for agreements between the different stakeholders on the present situation, the problems and the constraints, and steps to be taken to come better water management. The result of the interviews is described in the report. These stakeholders should also be invited to workshop that follow in the process. So it means for we can say that one quality and quantity water one integrated resource management is there. So we need to take all the details from that stakeholders and publics. So finally what we need to, we collected from all the information. Questionnaire survey means we are asking some questions, we are making one list of questions, and we'll go to individual persons and we are asking related to that questions, and what is the necessary actions, and how we can come, how we will take how we will give that solution for these issues. Everything we'll ask to the stakeholders, we will get some answer from them, and we will make some agreements between the different stakeholders on the present situation, the problems and the constraints. So the final we can find it what is the solution for that one, and we can discuss with them also. So we have to reform the process in the for the better management plan, and we have come back to the based on the experience, and we can check the proper first plan, initial plan, what we are planned, that we can check it, and we can make it we can make some changes if it is necessary. We will make some changes related to that one. So that is everything is considered in this questionnaire survey. And workshop on problem identification. Then after we can make it one workshop, and that workshop means for problem identification workshop. We call for a workshop, and we can in that workshop we can decide, and we can call for that stakeholders also. The important that all the relevant stakeholders recognize their problems and others. Hence, the first workshop to which all the relevant stakeholders are invited or dealt with the assessment of the existing water resource management situation and problem identification according to the perception of the stakeholders. And the second is the purpose of first work is to obtain common understanding between all different stakeholders, because that of conflicts is that it will solve holders of what the real problem and which should be addressed. Third one, the analysis report which is formulated in the analysis of step 4 will be used as reference and will be improved the accordance with the outcome of the workshop. The fourth one, the agreed set of problems by the stakeholders will be then be used as an input for the further stages on formulation of desired IWRM situation and necessary intervention. End results of the workshop should be selection of very fruitful method to arrive at set of most important problems. And step 6 is workshop 2. That's what we said. Different workshops we are conducting, and we are calling for the stakeholders, and we are getting from answer and solution from them. And next workshop 2, formulation of desired IWRM. After that, we need to make formulation is necessary. So the second workshop should be done or 1 or 2 months after the first workshop. Then what will happen is after workshop, then if there is any conflicts is there in between, though they can solve it easily in that first workshop. Then again after 1 or 2 months after the first workshop, then we can call them back, and we can, in that agenda is that workshops and workshop meetings, it will elaborate extensively on the principles of integrated water resource management, and it will further result in the formulation of desired water resource management situation in that specific river basin, and set of invention that will be needed to achieve that. This workshop outcome provides direction for constitutional, organization and operational interventions. The outcome should be seen as input for national policy and decision makers. Then it means outcome should be seen as input national policy and decision makers. Then national policy, the outcome will come in the proper way, and decision maker measures also with that. Then preliminary sub-basin report. Based on the foregoing steps, the experts will be draft a preliminary document comprising the following: assessment of existing water management situation. Finally, one report will draft related to that one. Assessment of existing water management situation. Second, complete problem inventory. And third one, desired water resource management situation. And fourth one, proposed set of general and specific intervention needed to reach the desired situation. This is the final draft copy of report will come related to that one. The draft of basin subbasin report is disseminated, and through procedure for collecting comments from the different stakeholders at the different level is followed. And step 9 is final basin report will create. The final output is we need to do the better management plan. So that one is final basin report is experts draft a final basin or subbasin report, which is offered to the government and financing agency for the endorsement and inclusion in the strategy into specific water related projects for the specific country. Monitoring procedure. A monitoring procedure is developed to see whether the interventions are taking place and whether the envisaged results are achieved. So types and forms of private sector involvement. The private sector is morally bound to invest in an environmental protection as response to regulation, legislation and specific incentives. The private sector plays an important role in financing water resource management through investments and service delivery in water supply and sanitation. So the private body is not only we are depending on the government sector side, sometimes the private body also plays important role financing water resources management through investments and service delivery in water supply and sanitation. The water supply and sanitation is very important for necessary for the public use, so that in that some cases in the private sector is playing the key role in that one. And the motivates our growing involvement for large and international private sector are financial. The government passes on the cost and work of raising funds. The financial is the important key role in that one. Expertise. Private companies, if large or international, bring essential know-how in some technical and economical fields. That is also one is expert. And risk sharing. Private companies are typically more willing to take large risks than public authorities. Private companies are generally we can take it is because the some works is are pending in between. The government projects it goes a legal framework or and the different issues there, but in private sector is not like that. It will go for a proper way. If it is work stopped also there, sometimes they may give some investment, they maintain this project work, but government works is it's not maintaining that policy, and that reasons their risk taking capacity in the more in that private companies compared to government companies. The main types of private involvement in water service provisions are full divestiture and joint venture and concession. The transfer of all public assets through sales, in which case the private sector obtains full responsibility of the water supply network facilities and operations. Joint ventures, partial transfer of assets through share sales resulting in shared ownership and operating responsibility between private and public sector. And assets remain in public ownership but use of the system by the private sector for the duration of 20 to 25 years. Private sector can collect or return the amount of collected or other form of payment. The main types of private involvement water service provisions are, we can say, fully divestiture, transfer of all public assets through sales, in which case the private sector obtains full responsibility of the water supply network facilities and operations. And joint ventures, sometimes the joint venture shares sales resulting in the shared ownership and operating responsibility between the private and public sector. And build, operate, own and transfer, because it's also one of the important terms in related to the private and government sectors. Build, operate, and own scheme where contracts for the construction of particular infrastructure projects are required, and where ownership is handed to public organization after a specified number of years. It means when the projects they are taking, and first they are considering that projects. It means projects are first build, operate and own. First schemes where contracts for the construction of particular infrastructure projects are required, and it means some we can take example for toll gate. First they are dealing with that projects themselves, and after some more years they are handovering to the government. The same like that, build, operate and own. That is, we can say that collecting toll, no, that is system is this the system only. Build, operate and own and transfer. Leasing, the water system remains in public ownership, but it is released to private operators. Actually some operating system is the water supplying system is there, that having public ownership, but it's leased to private operators, but they are giving for private operators sometimes. And contracting out, the least controversial form of private sector involvement, water undertaking subcontract certain functions to private firms. Example, meter readings even when the water services are provided by the private sector. Now they are planning to give some electricity supply also to private sector. So different systems is there. So this is one of the concept: build, operate and own and transfer systems. So we can say that IDWRM system, I think this is a you get to know about what is the IDWRM projects. IDWRM means Integrated Water Resource Management. This is the policy of combining authority and link up with the different authority, and we are getting some what we can say. Finally we are planning integrated approach for better management. Finally we get the better water source management. So that's different challenges also we discussed: the resources under pressure and population under water streams, and impact of pollution, water government crisis, and different issues is there. And at the same time, what is the challenges we discussed upon: securing water and protection, sustainability of water management. We have to protect the ecosystem, and water is available some location and some location is not available. That is the challenges is there. And managing risk related to population and various issues is there. Politics will to act related to that one. We said politicians is not taking any interest related to the project. They are not taking any initiative related to the project. That is also we discussed about. And ensuring the collaboration is if because river is passing through different area, and we need to classify the watershed, because many times it deals with the agricultural sector and forest sector, the river. Then major challenges, we have to collaborate with different sectors and different boundaries so that we can plan the better management plan. So that same thing, IDWRM, we can divide the natural system and human system. Natural system collaboration is mean integration of the fresh water and surface water and subsurface water. And because in riverside, what happened in the fresh water, everything we need to study. And land and water resource management, and surface water and groundwater, both are used in an integrated way, and utilization is proper. Surface and groundwater, that reasons integrated is required. Quantity and quality, available water should be stored in good quality, and upstream and downstream, because upstream area affects it automatically, it's affected in downstream area. But water related issues upstream and downstream area, it is important, because we see whatever total downstream area supplies depend on the upstream side. So upstream area and downstream side area, we should know that on what is the upstream side area effect to the downstream side. That all means important in the integrator. Why I am telling this all? When you are writing theory, you consider all those things, and you can write it in your theory part. And human system, the different how it is effect for integrated water systems for human systems. I tell the human system, it's including that resources, waste, production and pollution and development, everything is considered human system. People will in the river, because people are inside in and around the river basin doing lot of activity there, if they are staying there, because integrating we need to integrated system for that achieve in better way. with the better system within the system, and mainstreaming and water system, and how we can make that one, and macroeconomic various development issues within the availability, water availability, influencing the economic effects and water development, invest particular amount watershed, what kind of required, and this all we studied integrated water resource management. And same thing we are having the green water and blue water system is there. Generally in water management focus on blue water flowing in rivers and recharging the aquifers, that is called blue water, and green water is directly used in the biomass production, and more than 50% water is used in the biomass production. It is significance, and we need to study the significance of water. What is the main significance of this one green waters, and integration also of land and water, that is also integrate unit system. And human system integration means stakeholders and people participation is very important, and the planning and decision making in that integrated water resource system, because the consider rich people that there are different growing of crops. It means the poor people going for what no, rice cultivation, and rich people they are going for rich cultivators, they are going for sugar canes, and always conflict is there in between. So we need to solve that also. Then it comes an integrated water system operation tools for conflicting management. You have to resolve the issues, so that means one we need to tool that operation tools is required, and small scale formats and part of the implementation process. And development of France, three major issues we studied: efficiency, social equity, and sustenance. Efficiency, we said maximum possible, more than 80% of that water is using for agricultural purposes. So we need to know that which agricultural grow is good for our productivity, and in economical point of view which one is good, that everything we need to study related to that one. We need to the issues we need to study that one. And social equity, that is also important. Social equity means that whether it's poor or rich man, that is doesn't matter, but a quantity and quality, it should supply each and everyone, that they should require for each and everyone, that is important. And sustains means adequate quantity of water available for needs, that is sustainability. The water used for distributed properly, the distribution is properly, because we are having the resources, if you are not distributed the proper way, then it is all, that is also important. And overdrawing also it's affect the quantity of the, because it further future generation it will affect the pumping wells and gets dried up after sometimes, that is overgrowing also. We need to study that one. And integration between equity and sustainability, that everything comes under integrated water. Last two decades the global water UNESCO meeting is happens, and integrated water resource management, they are concentrated very much about the integrated water resource management and global water pollution system, maximum efficiency and comprehensive planning and intercepting the tool. The state-wise and equity should be there. System should be sustainable. That everything is considered in the integrated water resource system. And also Dublin statement we have said, and fresh water is essential to sustain life, and women plays a central part of that one. And developing country, women they have to save the water for daily needs. They know how to manage the water. So that is a main part of the women. So they should take care of that water, and that is very important. And water for public good with the socio-economic value. As per the development concerns, water is a key system for each and every person. The water is the aspects, the holistic management is required. Holistic is in multiple users. It's not one single authority. There's many authorities using, but that is holistic management. IWRM components. As per the all development plans and country local, the state governments, this is all also concept. And the multiple users we can say the holistic management. So it's for that integrated sectors and participatory approach is required. Women involvement is required in that holistic management. And water allocation to major users, and river basin planning and priorities. Monitoring also is necessary. We have to implement the effective monitoring system. Then economical point of view, when invest some money for particular project, benefit should be sustainable. And in IWRM information management, people should know what project is going on, what benefit is there. People should have some awareness, and people should have some knowledge related to the project. That is also related to the IWRM projects and planning. IWRM planning in three basic layers: enabling environment, and institutional framework, and management instruments. This institutional framework practices the policies and strategies and legislation. Management instrumentation for implementation, we have to see that benefit are sustainable for planning cycle. issues and analysis the gap. First one that we can cycle that one. First we need to know that the gaps between that issues, and so for remove the gap we can consider that is better management and monitor and evaluation. Not only implement, we have to monitor and evaluation, because sometimes what happens, the project just implementing, that is not monitoring and evaluating. So that reasons monitor and evaluation is very much necessary. So that finally we have to, when first we are planning a national policy, there some policy and some goals are implementing. After one circle if it's continuing, it means we have to come back that first plan. But once we have to come back first plan means we based on that one circle experience, we will get to know what we need to make correction in that. So we have to go back the systems, that is important. And managing water is available water in watershed, we should manage it there itself. So in the area upstream side and downstream side, surface and subsurface, land and water, everything we can manage. Finally we can optimize the supply to conduct assessment of surface and groundwater and analyze the water, because we have in the different sectors usage of water. Agriculture sector equitable assess watershed scale, establish policy the river basins, implement the pollution, so that establish the policy for pollution, and quality standards BOD and COD, particular location that we need to establish the policy related to the integrated water resource management.